Thursday night, after Thursday Night Football, the Krug Show rolls, and tonight, look who's in the house. Sterling Bennett joining us the last couple Thursdays. We're fired up to have him. Niners Cardinals, week 3. Can the Niners run the table? I don't know. We'll talk about it coming up next. Right now, join us. Off and running on the Krug Show Thursday night. Hope everybody's having a great day. It was a fantastic day down in Santa Clara. Niners practiced. Purdy practiced. Purdy spoke. Robert Saleh spoke. Mac Jones spoke. Had a nice little conversation with CJ West in the Niner locker room. A good day all the way around. Welcome to the Krug Show. Brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out, and they do run out. So get there early, get some brisket chili. Tell them the Krug sent you. Also, this football season is presented on the Krug Show by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. It's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chats, season-long leagues, and of course, Sleeper picks for daily fantasy. Use the promo code Larry, and Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Links in the description. Terms and conditions do apply. Well, it's the Niners and the Cardinals. Niners are getting ready to take on Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. The same Kyler Murray and the Cardinals that swept them last year. That's right. If you heard me say they swept them, they swept the 49ers. The Cardinals swept the Niners. In fact, Kyler Murray in the last 4 games against the 49ers that he has started, he is 3-1 with 7 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Can the Niners beat Kyler? And if so, how do they defend him? Why don't we get into this, Sterling? What do you think? Does Kyler have their number?
I don't know if he has their number, but we know this ever since 2019 when the San Francisco 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals match up. Kyler gives San Francisco a ton of fits, whether it's the wide 9, stopping him on the ground. You saw him last year at home at Levi Stadium. You think you have him dead to rights, and he has this circus throw and somehow clinches the game for them. So I don't know if he has their number, but Kyler may be this team's Achilles heel at times with how he plays.
I think he's one of the NFL's more underrated players.
Yes.
I really do. He throws the ball like a bigger man. He's got good, he's got good size to his hands, and he's controls the football. He doesn't have a hard time throwing it. He's a small man with big man, throwing. I mean, he doesn't struggle to get his hands around the ball at all. Commands the ball, throws lasers. He also, I think, is probably the best running quarterback in the NFL. His stop and start is very difficult. Last year, he had a 50-plus yard run against the 49ers, ran right on by Devondre Campbell. I think he's really a very, very underrated player. I kind of feel like, he gets blamed for why the Cardinals aren't good. I think the Cardinals are the reason he's not good. I think if you took Kyler Murray and put him on the 49ers, I think he would be great. I think he would be absolutely great.
Kyler, going into Kyler's stats this year, you mentioned he doesn't have problems throwing the football. 27th ranked among quarterbacks in turnover-worthy plays, and I get it, they played Carolina and New Orleans, but he just doesn't turn the ball over. He's a first overall pick for a reason. Last year, albeit he did tell the Cardinals he wanted to run the football less, he was the most efficient quarterback in designed runs over Lamar Jackson, over Josh Allen last season. So I know he gets clowned for the Call of Duty, the height stuff and everything, and that makes sense. But Kyler really is a really kind of polarizing quarterback, but underrated, I think is the word to use, that the NFL does not respect him enough right now in 2025.
If you walk around and say, CJ Stroud, people are, whoa, CJ Stroud. I'd rather have Kyler. People talk about Dak Prescott and, Dak Prescott. And I'd rather have Kyler. People talk about Jordan Love. Oh, Jordan Love. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I'd rather have Kyler. I'd rather have Kyler than a lot of NFL quarterbacks. Here's the thing that I think is going to be something to watch. John Lynch kind of hit on it a little bit this morning on KMBR when he came on. He's like, we're going to have a really smart rush. And really, when it comes down to it with Kyler, you have to have a very disciplined 4-man rush. You can't give him obvious run lanes, because if you give him obvious run lanes, he'll take it to the house. He won't just, oh, you gave him an obvious run lane. He had a nice 15-yard run. No, he's going to run. He's going to take off down the sideline. He's going to be gone.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a house call. So to me, that's you have to be very disciplined in your, you got to rush together. Now, a lot of people look at defensive line in the NFL and they think, oh, it's just a bunch of guys, trying to chase down the quarterback. It's not. It's all very choreographed, and it's all very planned out as far as where the rushers are coming from and so on and so forth. So, I mean, that's really the key. It's like, Eric Armstead was genius at this. It's like if Bosa got up the field, then there was a big avenue instead, between the tackle and the end. He would maybe he's bull rushing. He would notice that space and kind of move over to keep the quarterback kind of corralled. And he kind of understood how to be that mature guy who kind of stays in his lane as everybody else is just kind of doing what they want and freelancing. So I think they really missed that in Armstead, but that's what I see in this one. It's like the Niners have a lot of good defensive linemen, and their young defensive linemen are coming off a very strong performance. Mikael Williams was great. Alfred Collins was phenomenal. Those two guys were the best that they've been so far. They're riding some great momentum into this one. But how they rush Kyler, I think, is going to determine who wins this game.
Well, on top of that, you mentioned early in the show that Devondre Campbell was getting your run by Kyler last year. Having the added speed of D. Winters help you to kind of corral Kyler back in on the perimeter if he gets outside and you can't set a hard edge. That's also a big game changer for this defense, where you love Fred Warner, what he can bring to you probably right now in the DPOY conversation, but Winters adds a lot on the other side to him. So you're right, though. Rushing the passer, I think Mikael Williams may be the most important player on this defensive line on Sunday. The way he played against New Orleans, getting to the quarterback, or at least opening up lanes for Bosa and Bryce Huff. And on top of that, the run defense too. The Cardinals will at times utilize Kyler as a designed quarterback run. And there's a big thing for Mikael, who's in his first year at San Francisco, young player, obviously. How much have you learned, in your first 2 weeks? And they've kind of been ramping up the mobility of the quarterbacks. Sam Darnold, somewhat mobile, Rattler, more mobile. Now here's Kyler Murray, maybe the most mobile guy in football, not named Lamar Jackson. So it's a big test for a defense, even for Robert Saleh coming back to San Francisco. Kyler gave him fits in 2019 too. So I want to see what Robert has learned in the last couple of years in New York, and hopefully he has taken some of the struggles he's had against Josh Allen and brought them over to hopefully have success against Kyler this year.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch. Jonathan Gannon is a defensive coach. He's the head coach. Yeah. Drew Petzing is the offensive coordinator. And, I was talking to some Arizona people this week, and I'm like, let's tell me a little bit about this offense and what are they trying to do and how do they utilize guys and how are they setting up their route combinations and what's the design? What's the methodology of what they're trying to do offensively? And what I was told by more than one person, which I thought this was interesting, is that they really have a very clear utilization of every weapon within their system, right? And that is that they're using Zay Jones and Michael Wilson, who both have vertical speed. They're using those guys and maybe a little bit of Greg Dortch to just run off the coverage. They're running the go. They're running the deep patterns. They're running deep go type patterns, posts, corners, goes. They're running the deep route and running off the coverage. And they're then coming underneath to the tight end, Trey McBride, and to their number one receiver, Marvin Harrison Jr., MHJ. Big Marv, who they say is quite a bit improved, a lot stronger from year one to year two. So that sounds like what they're trying to do. And then they run with James Conner and Trey Benson. Benson's got more speed. Conner's a little long in the tooth. They add wrinkles at the line of scrimmage to make you have to defend. The idea of Kyler's running, in addition, which opens up some run lanes for their bigger running backs. But I think that's probably what you're going to see. Is you're going to see Zay Jones and Michael Wilson. Try to create that space. And if they get open down the field, Kyler will throw it to them. But it's all by design to try to create room underneath for Harrison and for the tight end, Trey McBride. And I think that's how this game's going to be won. How well do the Niners defend Trey McBride? How well do they defend the pass game to Marvin Harrison? And do they limit the explosives in the run game? Whether it be to Kyler or to their backs. I mean, Benson had a 52-yard run in week one. Kyler ran for 50 against the Niners on a run last year. So I think that's the plan. Obviously you got to cover the deep ball. I mean, if you can't run, you don't want to see them throw it over your head. But I think the whole reason those guys are there is just to create the space, and they're looking to move it to McBride and Harrison Jr. What do you think, if that's the plan, what do you think of the Niners' chances of stopping it?
It sounds easier to say it here before Sunday as to, I think San Francisco has a great chance. But in reality, the Cardinals this year as a whole, as a team, have given up a pressure on Kyler 33% of the time. That's not just the offensive line. It's tight ends, it's receivers, it's running backs involved. Kyler is pressured a ton with this Cardinals offense, who I think Paris Johnson is an underrated, one of the best left tackles in football, certainly growing into year three. But the guards on the Cardinals offensive line are not great. Evan Brown, Isaiah Adams, they have allowed 6 of the offensive line's 10 pressures this year, going back to Micah Williams, Jordan Elliott, who had a really great game against the Saints as a pass rusher. Can you get interior pressure, force Kyler out of the pocket, or at least force him to make a play with his legs, and hopefully your guys can kind of clean things up? But on the ground for the Cardinals, you go to their scores in PFF, and how much do they matter? To some degree, a lot, to some degree, none. But it's worth mentioning here that they have right now the second worst run blocking offensive line in football, which you really wouldn't expect that, knowing James Conner, Trey Benson, Kyler being 3 formidable rushing options, but only 4.5 yards a carry, which isn't terrible. They're running the football about 40% of the time out there in Arizona. But they're really in a spot where if you can get these guys into third downs, which again, it's easier said than done. If you can get these guys and say you can stop Conner and Benson on first and second down, limit Kyler to a short run on first and second down, they have the 17th ranked third down conversion rate, around 41% in the NFL. So I think San Francisco has a good shot in this game. I believe in the defensive line, what Saleh is doing out there, and I believe in what this defense has been, how they've been playing the last 2 weeks. So I kind of erased last year entirely for how good the Cardinals played against San Francisco, for how bad it was. Sorensen, Campbell, and a lack of weaponry on the defense. But you're right, though. Trey McBride's one of the best tight ends in football, certainly top 3 in my eyes. It's him, it's Kittle, and it's Brock Bowers, and he's certainly one to watch out there on Sunday. But you mentioned Marvin Harrison Jr. Only 10 targets this year. He's already been questioned as to, hey, do you want the football more? Could this be a game where you see the Cardinals, hey, Bernardo Green, back-to-back 39-plus yard receptions given up the last 2 weeks. Hey, MHJ, get deep downfield, and we're going to feed you. So this is going to be a game of kind of that, not chess match, but ultimately, how does San Francisco's defense handle the weaponry of the Cardinals' offense?
It's a good point, and it's a good question. I think the Cardinals do have some really, really good weapons, and can the 49ers somehow have a better defensive versus Kyler? After a while, it's like you see it in baseball sometimes when you beat a team over and over again, they start getting confidence against you. And once somebody's confident, it's hard to turn off their water. And a guy like Kyler, because he's 3-1 in the last 4 starts against the Niners, does bring confidence and momentum into this game. And how the 49ers defend him, and if they're able to shut him down, probably is going to be the determining factor if they win or lose. Now, there's a new clip out on Coach Yak's Twitter from Ian Rappaport on Brock Purdy versus Mac Jones, and we'll share the screen here and play this. And this is from just tonight. Here is Ian Rappaport on Amazon talking a little bit about the Niner quarterback decision that's coming up. Do you start Mac? Do you start Purdy? How's this going to go?
Network insider Ian Rappaport. So Ian, Mac Jones filled in for Brock Purdy on Sunday. Looked good. What's the latest on Purdy?
Now, my understanding is that Brock Purdy's status is still very much up in the air for Sunday. Remember, he's dealing with a turf toe injury that initially had a 2 to 5 week recovery time. Now, the 49ers did get some good news this week. Purdy has practiced twice on a limited basis. My understanding is he is very limited. Now, he talked to reporters today, said he's going to see how he feels around game time. Mac Jones also talked to reporters today, talked first. Here is my read on the situation. Brock does at least have a chance to play, but it certainly seems like Mac Jones has a better chance.
All right. And in that outing for Mac Jones, 279 yards and 3 touchdowns, more importantly, the win. Meanwhile, following J.J. McCarthy's ankle injury against Atlanta, Carson Wentz is set to start for Minnesota. How long might the Vikings be without McCarthy?
Oh, we can listen to that later. But basically, you got the Purdy part right there. So what do you think? If it came right down to, Brock Purdy, I was at practice today. I think that Brock Purdy looks better today than he did yesterday, but not quite 100%.
Yeah.
And to me, he looked still moving a little gingerly, not necessarily putting his foot in the ground quite as hard or with the same force that he normally would. And that's a practice level. So the game level is quite a bit more severe than that. And there's no time to, kind of, tiptoe through things. You're going to have to, just kind of forget that you have the injury and just go play. I think it's Mac Jones. I think it's the same thing that you saw last week. Mac Jones is the 1, Martinez is the 2, and Purdy's going to be the emergency 3.
Yeah, I don't see how Purdy plays this Sunday. You heard 2 to 5 weeks. That was the initial report. And, this is essentially the end of week number 2 coming up. So the idea Brock's going to play this Sunday to me was foolish. This happened, I think, on Tuesday. ESPN's Jeff Darlington said that Brock was out. And look, things change as the week goes on, but I have never been under the interpretation that Brock had a chance to play this Sunday. Obviously, you want to get him out there and see what he can do and how he feels and everything. All that makes sense. But even Kyle, who didn't want to share a single note on Christian McCaffrey's quote-unquote calf injury come into week 1, he was sharing everything about Brock. Oh, his toe feels great. The shoulder feels good. Like, oh, really? You didn't want to say anything about CMC. Now you're oversharing on Brock Purdy. Okay, like the writing's on the wall. We can read between your lies, Kyle. He's not playing. There's no way he's playing on Sunday. You're not going to risk your quarterback getting hurt in week 3, which Joe Burrow out for 3 months with a similar injury. Why risk that whatsoever?
Yeah, I mean, that's it right there. It's like, if you were wondering, what's the downside, it's just turf toe. Well, you just got a firsthand look at what the downside is, and Mac Jones, it's funny. People ask, well, based on how Mac Jones is playing, and John and Kyle aren't going down that road because they don't want this to be a referendum on who's playing better. They don't want to turn this into let's make a deal at quarterback. They want Brock to be the guy, right? That's why they paid him, and they're not going to back off that. So he's their guy. So they've maintained, hey, look, it's not about Mac and how he looks and how and this and that. It's about, is Brock ready to roll? And if he's ready to roll, then he's going to roll. Mac Jones did play incredibly well on third downs against the Saints. He threw for 121 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. He had a third down passer rating of 132.3. Mac Jones looked really good. And I thought he played exceptional football. I don't know what you thought, but I mean, to me, you're talking about a guy who 3 touchdowns, no picks, 43 dropbacks on the road in the dome. His first start, he completes 26 of 39, 7.2 yards per attempt, 279 total yards, 113.3 quarterback rating. It wasn't a perfect outing. He had some couple plays on the field that I'm sure he'd like to have back. He lost a fumble. But I mean, he was under control. The guy was in command, played in rhythm, led the team, took what the defense gave. I think they're going back to him. I really do. I'd be shocked if they didn't.
Yeah, I don't think there's a reason to not go back to Mac. Again, why risk Brock Purdy's long-term health? But on top of that, Mac played well, and if you can afford Brock an extra week to get back against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 4, why wouldn't you take it? You also know the Cardinals aren't going to have what seems like 3 of their top 4 cornerbacks. They're not going to have, Murphy Bunting, may not have Will Johnson, may not have their starting nickels. So why not toss out your backup quarterback and see what he can do? Obviously, Matt could play great against the Saints and lay an egg on Sunday against the Cardinals, and we're all sitting here like, oh my God, Brock should have played. They lost this game. But I think Mac Jones against this Cardinals defense, which to their own credit has a much better defensive line than they had last year. I think Mac is still in a good spot to win this football game for San Francisco. Now, would I want Mac dropping back 39 times? Probably not. But I do think that this Cardinals defense, which if you look at their stats against Bryce Young and Spencer Rattler, 2 quarterbacks that, albeit have potential, have not lived up to it by any means the last couple of seasons. And I'm sure you would say right now are not playing as good as Mac Jones currently is. The Cardinals have allowed a 75% completion rate over the middle on 45 attempts from Bryce Young and Spencer Rattler, 367 yards and 1 touchdown over the middle of the football field. So you can say you want Brock to play. You can say you want Mac Jones to play. I don't think it would matter for how successful this team could be, at least passing the football to guys like Jawan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall. Maybe it's Luke Farrell, Jake Tunges, whoever it is. The middle of the field should be open for whoever's playing quarterback for San Francisco on Sunday.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Some of those numbers that you threw out there are very interesting. All right, let's do this. 49er football season on the Krug Show is presented by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. Let's do our Sleeper lineup. It's a one-stop shop at Sleeper. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chats, season-long leagues, and of course Sleeper picks for daily fantasy, where you choose between 2 to 8 players pregame or live and pick more or less on their statistical projections. And if you're new to it, use the promo code Larry and you're going to get a $100 deposit match up to $100 on your first deposit. The link is right there in the description. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, let's now make our lineup for the week. Let's take a look at our lineup, and we'll do a lineup here. Let's see. We're going to put up the lineup. There we go. And we can choose between players we want in the Niners-Arizona game. So we go to Niners-Arizona. It's real easy to navigate. You go there, and then down here, you got all your options. So let's take a look at Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey has been a revelation in the first 2 games. He's been absolutely outstanding. Okay, so you can have an anytime touchdown, 36.5 receiving yards, 70.5 rushing yards, 110.5 rushing and receiving. I think I like the receiving yards. I think I like 37 receiving yards.
Yeah, it certainly seems like CMC has been utilized, especially against New Orleans, much better in the passing game. But I would almost look at anytime touchdowns because McCaffrey has 10 in 7 games against the Cardinals in his career. He is a guy who I think the Niners this year have not scored a rushing touchdown. The odds are that changes this Sunday. So if it was me, I'd pick anytime CMC touchdown.
Let's do it.
Cardinals this Sunday.
I like that one. Let's go to Juwan Jennings. JJ had a 26% target share to 15% for Pearsall. So people wondering, who's the number one receiver? It's Jennings. What do you think of that? 52.5 receiving yards. Seems a little on the high side.
Yeah. Do you buy into the Cardinals defense losing their top-ish 3 cornerbacks? I think they may toss out 3 safeties. They're going to have Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson. Probably going to see D'Adarian. I think it's Robinson this Sunday too. So I don't know how good Juwan's going to play. Obviously, he's a mismatch for a lot of defenses being a big slot receiver, but I almost want to say receiving touchdown again. Like I think he's in a good spot for at least a red zone touchdown in this game if they can get there.
I agree. He's the money guy. Let's say receiving touchdown for JJ. We'll go more than a half. There you go. Now, let's go to Murray. See what Kyler's got here. So he's got 28.5 rush yards, 220 pass yards, 243 combined yards. I think, he had a 50-yard run last year on one run. I think it's very reasonable to think that over the course of the 4 quarters, he'll have 30 yards in rushing. So he's at 28.5. I like more than 28.5.
Yeah, he's averaged about 35 a game the last 2 weeks. So I think that's a good part. Obviously San Francisco's defense is probably better than the Saints and the Panthers, but Kyler's averaging in the 30s already for 2 games. So that's probably going to stay the same.
I think, the one thing about the 49ers in this game, if they do try to use a couple receivers to run off the coverage and they're going underneath, at least there's going to be some where they cover the guys underneath and Kyler just takes off and runs. All right. So there you go. We have a 3-entry deal for $5. And what will that pay us? 33. 5 pays 33. Is that what we got there? There we go. 5 to make 33. So we need Jennings with an anytime touchdown, McCaffrey with an anytime touchdown, and Kyler Murray with 29 or more rush yards. If that happens, we go 3 for 3. Our $5 turns into $33. Courtesy of our good friends at Sleeper. Big thanks to Sleeper. Remember, use code Larry for 100% deposit match up to $100. Links right in the description below. Terms apply. Help support the show, and it gets you rolling on the #1 sports app. And let's be honest, it's also just a ton of fun. It's a ton of fun. I like winning my Sleeper lineups. We won our Survivor pool tonight.
Nice.
For we're in the Cambiar Survivor pool. We went with Buffalo against Miami. So we're 3 for 3. We've gotten to week 4 already in the Survivor pool. All right. I wanted to share. There was a great cut this week. One of my favorite sound bites of the week was Jonathan Gannon talking about Kyle Shanahan. And it's I thought it was a really compelling cut. Now, there's a lot of coach speak, right? There's a lot of everybody kind of says everybody's great. Yeah, we love this guy. This coach is right here. This guy's really amazing. And so you don't know how much of it is somebody just kind of sucking up to you publicly and trying to sweet talk you as opposed to their honest opinions on these guys. But I felt like Gannon sounded genuine here. And I don't know his personality that well, but here he is talking about Kyle Shanahan and the challenges of preparing to face a Kyle Shanahan offense. Here we go. A little Jonathan Gannon.
It's your 3rd year in the division preparing for a Kyle Shanahan offense, at least with the 49ers. How would you describe preparing and game planning for a Kyle Shanahan offense?
Hard, difficult. Yeah. He's there's a reason he is who he is. He's brilliant. I think he adapts really well during a game, what he sees going on. how defenses are trying to negate some of the things that he likes to do. And he has multiple compliments to, if you're going to live like that, he's going to stress you out a little bit. So he's fantastic. It's hard. It's hard.
So there you go. A little bit of Gannon right there talking about going up against Shanahan. And then I decided, well, you know what? Maybe I'll ask Kubiak, what he thinks of that and about the in-game adjustments part of it. That was the part I kind of thought was interesting. So let's hear from Kubiak here, talking about Shanahan's ability in midst of the game to, make adjustments on the fly.
When we're looking through the pictures, and
Gannon pointed out that Shanahan's really good in game at making switches on the fly. You've worked with other coaches, I'm sure. How does he compare?
I mean, yeah, I think all coaches, that's part of coaching. You have to make adjustments. And Kyle has a great eye when we're looking through the pictures and we're kind of looking at how the defense is reacting. Kyle's great at communicating what he's seeing, and then we talk and we get together and say, hey, what can we do to kind of, take advantage of this look, what they're doing. And like you said, Kyle just has a great eye for those things, and he sees them, and we communicate on the sideline, and we try to get it done if we need to make adjustments.
Kind of the game within the game. What do you think of what you heard there, Sterling?
I think it makes sense. Kyle, I think, is one of the best play callers in football, obviously, but I think it was 2019 where Kyle is telling the referee, hey, this cornerback's going to hold here, look out for it. And I think sometimes as the fan base, goes on and you see Kyle have success and everything, and it kind of becomes common knowledge that, yeah, Kyle's great, whatever, Kyle's great, but you saw what he could do with Mac Jones against the Saints last week and the adjustments they made at halftime coming out on third downs and what they did. And I think the Cardinals defense provides, albeit not as big of a challenge as the Seahawks defense does, but they're both Fangio style. Both Fangio style defenses. They're going to master coverages. Jonathan Gannon's one of the best defensive coordinators when it comes to how they maneuver the defensive line, how they'll drop the edge rushers in coverage. They'll bring linebackers. They'll bring a third safety in to kind of blitz the quarterback. And I think, it'll take some time to adjust to that. But unfortunately, we really haven't got to see a really good Cardinals team against a really good Niners team with Gannon at the helm. We almost got that a little bit before Brock tore his UCL in the first drive in the back in 2022 in his rookie season in the playoffs against Philadelphia. Then 2023, the Cardinals were terrible. And so now this feels like the best game we're probably going to get between these two teams where the chess match actually matters the most. And you're going to have to see Kyle kind of become, or at least show the, hey, I'm a damn good football coach. Don't forget that against Gannon on Sunday. So it'll be fun. I think when you get to see Kyle go to work and actually kind of show off a little bit, that's when Niner games get really fun. And through the first two games, you can tell that despite the struggles they've had at times, this team's not going to get out coached. That's a really good place to be for San Francisco.
If you look at the Niner offense and going up, for that Shanahan will be running, and you've got the Arizona defense that obviously is Gannon's brainchild. I think the challenge this week is you got to get, they added Josh Sweat from Philadelphia. He's in his prime. Yeah. They traded for Baron Browning a year ago. So now suddenly out of nowhere, they've got two young, talented, but veteran edge rushers who are going to put a lot of pressure on Trent Williams and Colton McKivitz. I think it really starts there. I think Buda Baker's a tremendous player. There's no question, but they're dinged up at corner. To me, it's about, can you block Josh Sweat? Can you block Baron Browning? And then the third guy up front that's wreaking havoc, believe it or not, is still the ancient one, Calais Campbell. Calais Campbell is playing terrific football. Now, it may not last. He may not be able to play at this level through, months of football. We'll see what he looks like later in the year. But here we are in September, and Calais Campbell looks like one of the best players on the Cardinals defense.
Well, also don't forget Jordan Birch, a 15% pressure rate and a 9% run defense stop rate too at Oregon this past year as draft. He's been a kind of revelation for them on first and second down, and he's getting to the quarterback too. So they have found a lot of guys. They signed Calais Campbell. They signed Dalvin Tomlinson to eat up space on the interior. This is a good Cardinals defense, at least up front with the defensive line. Zaven Collins, underrated too in that grouping. So they have a lot of guys that can get to the quarterback in many ways. I think Calais Campbell had the game kind of sealing sack against the Panthers last weekend. So they're making plays. They're hungry. And I think, at least my mindset looking at the Cardinals, is they feel like they're ready for that year 3 jump. Now, are they? We don't know yet, but it certainly feels like they believe they are. Beat the Panthers, beat the Saints, won a road game week 1, won at home last week, barely, I might add. But now they're on the road again. San Francisco feels like they're back. Here come the Cardinals trying to kind of, push the big dog down and kind of stake their claim to part of the NFC West. So it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a dogfight in the trenches. Hopefully San Francisco can hold up. And I think, Connor Colby, this is a big game for him. How do you handle your first NFL career start? How do you handle the best defensive line you faced through 2 games so far? So trench warfare, big point of victory, hopefully, for San Francisco.
No doubt. Here's a stat that I think is kind of interesting. NFL rookie snaps per team. Through 2 weeks, the 49ers rank 4th in rookie snap count percentage at 13.8%. There it is right there. You see the 49ers 4th. Number 1 is New England. Number 2 is Cleveland. Number 3 is Miami, and the Niners are 4th. The lowest rookie percentage of snaps so far is the Rams, which is probably good to see that they're not getting a lot out of their rookie class this year after the great rookie class they had last year. That being said, you mentioned Connor Colby. If I just said to you, the 49ers have a lot of rookies. This is their volume class for sure. They have a lot of rookies contributing, and by the time the season's over, they may even have more. On offense, Jordan Watkins, Connor Colby, Drew Moss, Jordan James. Defensively, of course, McKell, Alfred Collins, CJ West, Marquis Siegel, Upton Stout, Nick Martin. A lot of rookies on the Niners. Which rookie are you most enjoying watching right now?
It's hard not to say Michael Williams. I'm not sure if you saw the stat that came out, I believe, from Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports this past week, where the Niners run defense, when Michael's on the field, around 66% success rate. When he's off the field, it plummets 40% to 25%. Michael, he's long, he's lanky, he's got a ton of power, and there will be a period of necessary growth where the sacks aren't happening, but you saw against the Saints what he can do in that pocket to get to the quarterback, open up space for Nick and Bryce Huff. I think Michael has just been a jump off the broadcast game film you see on TV type of player so far. I've liked what I've seen from Stout and Siegel, but Michael to me is the big one. Obviously he's your first round pick, but he's showing like it so far through 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, he just looks so monster. Really, it's like it looks good. Across the board, it's like it was a well conceived concept. Now on draft day, they hadn't signed Bryce Huff yet. Yeah. But man, the Huff signing is such a perfect move in lockstep with the McKell draft choice. So now you have McKell setting the edge in the run game on first and second down, and he does it in a way that is he is just beastly. Like, good luck getting to the edge. Good luck trying to seal him with a tight end. He's just absolutely destroying tight ends. And he's seemingly doing it without a lot of technique, just absolutely just
raw power.
Raw power, just overpowering these 240, 250 pound tight ends. So he's a great edge setter in the rush game. But then you add Huff opposite Bosa, and now you've created so much space inside. And then you found Gross Matos, who just is seemingly like this ideal tag team partner. And what I'm seeing is just that Yatir Gross Matos and McKell, they're way too quick. if you spread out these guards and you make those splits bigger, those guards are already going to struggle with these two guys because they're in a pass rush situation. But when you had a speed rusher like Huff and kind of spread that line out even more and give guards who are yearning for tight quarters, instead they're getting wide open spaces. And now here comes Mikal and here comes your Tier Gross Matos, and these guys are 275 and they got kind of some shimmy and they've got some length and some speed and power. And it's like these guards just, they can only hold up for just a little bit, a little bit. So that the Huff Mikal additions up front. And not only that, Mikal is playing a ton of snaps.
Yeah.
He's playing almost every single defensive snap. So he just gives them so much. First and second down against the run, third down against the pass. Man, if that continues, that would be something. If I had to say a close second, the improvement in week 1 to week 2 in Alfred Collins is so extraordinary that it does make you go, wait a second here. Is this guy going to be the best defensive player on the team? Is he on that kind of a trajectory? Because you forget he's incredibly raw. And now he's getting a chance to be coached. He's got a great coach. He's hanging with Bosa. That's the other thing, too. Like going to practice, I'm watching Bosa in the midst of drills pull Mikal and at times Alfred aside and show them some hand placement games and some better, kind of winning techniques, and they're drinking it up and carrying it right into games. So I'm excited about all these guys, but I'd say Mikal 1 right now and Collins 2. Collins a close second. And I talked to Wes today. He feels like he played a significantly better game this week than last week as well.
It does seem like San Francisco's strategy at defensive line is coming together. Again, it's still early, so we'll see how things progress throughout the year. But the jump that Mikal and Alfred Collins made, I thought was exponential walking into week 2, where we kind of left week 1 saying, Mikal played okay. The sacks weren't there. The pressures weren't there, but he was double teamed 95% of the time, couldn't do much. But Alfred Collins looked terrible week 1. And the growth he had in week 2, the swim move, almost got a sack in that game, got some pressure, which he's not really a pass rushing defensive tackle, albeit he has played some 3-tech and does have some explosive ability as a pass rusher. It's not entirely there just yet, but for Collins to make that big leap, he almost feels like a player, in my opinion, where once he sees that he can do it, it then becomes second nature, where it was like, get your pad level down. You can get to the quarterback. You aren't just a big, 6'6", 330-pound run defender. You can do these things, and we have to show you and prove it to you. But once you see it, you start to kind of believe in yourself. You talked about the confidence playing against your opponent. I do wonder if Collins, who didn't really have OTAs, didn't really have rookie minicamp, we're finally seeing him at full force walking into week 3 after a really good week 2.
One of the articles that I saw in the offseason that I really enjoyed was ESPN, right when the camp was going to start, did a story about the 100 best moves of the offseason. And I was like, I wonder what number Bryce Huff is. I'm looking. He's not there. I'm looking at the top. Oh, top 10, top 20, no. 30s, no. 40s, no. He didn't make the top 100. Did not make the top 100. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, what the heck? Why would this guy not make the top 100? You added a pass rusher in his prime. Why is this guy not making the top 100? And then it hit me. You know what? He didn't do well. He left the Jets after he did do well with the Jets. And then he didn't have a good year in Philly. And when you're in the Northeast, and that's where the media is, if you have a bad year on a good team, it's like, well, you must have sucked. Yeah. But he just wasn't a scheme fit in Philadelphia. And I'm going to share the screen here on a Brian Baldinger tweet. I guess he went on the radio on 95.7 The Game, and he said this about Bryce Huff. He said, the Eagles made a mistake. He's not a linebacker. He's a pass rush specialist. He's got to put his hand in the dirt. He's not an outside linebacker like they wanted him to be in Philadelphia. Robert Saleh knows what Huff is. He closed the game out against the Saints like Nick Bosa did the game before. Nick has somebody who can come off the edge opposite of him right now. Huff is better than anybody they had over there at defensive end the last couple of years. And I've been saying this all offseason that I think Huff is the best defensive end the Niners have had opposite Bosa, including D Ford.
Yeah.
And when I asked Kasarik, I remember thinking, I like the move, but like everybody else, I was like, well, but he did suck with the Eagles. Why did he suck with the Eagles? The Eagles were pretty good. And so I walked right up to Kasarik in the first media session we had. And we don't get a lot of access to these guys, but I went right up to him. First question, Chris, what you guys got Bryce Huff? He had a bad year in Philly. What happened? And why is he a good fit here? And Chris is so intense. And he looked at me and what I love about Chris, there ain't no BS about Chris.
Yeah.
Chris don't BS you. Chris doesn't lie to you. Chris doesn't, he'd rather tell the PR staff, hey, I don't want to talk and sit it out than actually tell lies. He's not going to tell lies. He's just not. He's a straight shooter. He's a tough guy. He's a straight shooter, and he's an honest guy at his core. So, and he said to me, he's like, and he made and it's an esoteric point for sure. It's a hardcore point that would be lost on 99.9% of all people, and it was almost lost on me as well, which is he's like the step sequence between a 4-3 defensive end in our wide 9 and the step sequence for a 3-4 stand-up outside linebacker in Philly's defense is quite a bit different. And it's really just as simple as that. Bryce's greatest traits is his ability to get off the ball. His first 3 or 4 steps are almost choreographed. It's like a ballet dancer. There is no wasted movement. And he's a much better player in a 4-point stance in a 4-3 defense, bending the edge, never, ever, ever dropping into coverage. And as a 3-4 outside linebacker, you're in a 2-point stance, and it changes everything about your rush. And I just thought it was really interesting at the time. And, man, if it hasn't proven to be the case. I mean, Bryce Huff was one of the best offseason additions because him and Mikel are transforming this line around Nick Bosa.
Well, that's the great thing, too, is because a lot of people talked about once they drafted Mikel Williams and they got Bryce Huff, and, it'll be like 2019. But in reality, I always thought they were trying to remake that 2021 defensive line. It had Ebukam, it had Arden Key, it had Charles Omenihu, and you can see, albeit, Bryce Huff is much better than all those guys right now. You can see that, yes, Mikel fills the Eric Armstead role, plays outside on, first and second down, moves into the inside, Huff comes on the football field, but you also now have Yetur Gross-Matos, who does become kind of the Charles Omenihu guy that plays inside on third downs if he needs to, can get to the quarterback as well. But Huff belongs. Like, if ESPN could do a referendum on their list, I'm sure at some point they'd have Huff in there in the top 100 moves. Like, that's a lot of moves. 100? Like, right now, I'm sure Dre Greenlaw's in that, and he hasn't played a single down for the Broncos, and I love Dre Greenlaw, but Bryce Huff right now has been a much more impactful player through 2 weeks. And the ability is the one thing San Francisco has really lacked opposite Bosa is simply just speed. We all saw that screenshot. When the ball is snapped on that strip sack fumble Huff's had against New Orleans, he is nearly equal distance to where the right tackle is when the ball is snapped. He's already essentially by the right tackle with the ball snapped. You can't teach that. You can't draft a guy and say, hey, here's him. And People wanted James Pierce Jr. in the draft. Guys wanted Mike Green. San Francisco has James Pierce Jr. at home, albeit he's older and probably not going to be cheaper for that much longer, but they have James Pierce Jr. at home. They have the speed rusher here to a point where I would not be shocked if San Francisco prioritizes paying Bryce Huff this season rather than Juwan Jennings when it's all said and done.
I mean, there's no question that Huff is a big time guy they don't have other receivers, man. They don't have anybody that's like Bryce Huff. So
Right.
That's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought about that. All right. It's kind of a sad note, but one that we need to pass along, and that is the 49er family is deeply saddened by the passing of former linebacker Jim Fahnhorst, who passed away yesterday at the age of 66. This is Keith Fahnhorst's brother. Fahnhorst was originally drafted in the 4th round by the Vikings in the 82 draft, and he played 2 seasons in the USFL, signed with the Niners as a free agent in 84, spent 7 seasons of his career, all 7 seasons of his NFL career with the Niners, 82 games, 38 starts, 232 tackles. He was a contributing member to 3 Super Bowl championships. He was Super Bowl 19, Super Bowl 23, and Super Bowl 24. So, very sad. Jim Fahnhorst, he was born in St. Cloud, Minnesota, went to the University of Minnesota, first team All Big Ten, earned his degree in psychology at the University of San Francisco in 1988. He's the younger brother of Keith Fahnhorst, who played 14 seasons for the 49ers, 74 through 87. So rest in peace, Jim Fahnhorst, number 55, a good 49er, definitely a very good player for the 49ers, and taken too quickly for sure. So rest in peace, Jim Fahnhorst. Always tough to make the awkward transition back to the game and football, but let's talk about Christian McCaffrey, because McCaffrey, how the Niners utilize him is a week-to-week proposition. In week 1, he got 31 touches. He ran the heck out of it. In week 2, they threw him the ball, and he was a dynamic receiver. So great that when I asked Shanahan about his route running, I said, "Is he the best route runner you've ever seen?" And he's like, "Yes." And I said, "Really? Far and away?" And he's like, "Yes." And I'm thinking to myself, man, this, for old school Niner fans, now Shanahan's not old school Niner fan. He's a younger guy, but Roger Craig and Ricky Waters were pretty damn good when it came to receiving running backs. When you say, the greatest receiving running backs of all time, you could come up with a pretty nice list. Marcus Allen, Ronnie Harmon, Marshall Faulk, the great Roger Craig, lots and lots of Darren Sproles, Warwick Dunn, Edgerrin James, LaDainian Tomlinson, Walter Payton, Thurman Thomas, Alvin Kamara. And yeah, Kyle says that CMC is the best route running back he's ever seen. And when I asked Christian about it, I told Christian that Kyle said that. He's like, yeah, I take a lot of pride in my route running and I work on it. And he said, coming from him, it means a lot. What do you think? I mean, we all have recency bias. I know you're a young guy, but NFL history. Roger Craig was the first 1,000, Pro Bowl at fullback, Pro Bowl at halfback, hell of a receiver, caught more swing passes. McCaffrey runs kind of a more full route tree type. He's almost more like a receiver. I would say that, Ricky Waters was a tremendous receiver at Notre Dame. He was a very good receiving running back with the Niners. He'd probably be the guy that I would think of as far as receiving talent. But Kyle says CMC. What do you think?
Christian McCaffrey always struck me as a guy that was a wide receiver playing running back because of his size. And obviously his build helps him too. But, again, not having seen Roger Craig play when he was with San Francisco, I can't speak to that entirely. I'll be, out of respect for him. Obviously, I know he's great and everything, but when you win Offensive Player of the Year, when you go 1,000, it's hard to not say Christian McCaffrey belongs in that conversation. But I'm hoping, if you're going to say that, if you are going to say Christian McCaffrey is, in Kyle Shanahan's eyes, the best route running running back in football, whether it's history or in the regime's history, then utilize him more as a wide receiver and save his legs throughout the season for everybody's sake. He was so great against the Saints in doing that, especially on third downs, converting third downs, being a check down guy, and also getting in space and making some guys miss. But I mean, really, this is a game against the Cardinals on Sunday where you could say this is a big CMC day. He owns the Cardinals through 7 games, over 1,000 yards total on the ground through the air, 45 career receptions against the Cardinals. I think he scored 4 touchdowns in a game with San Francisco back in 2023 against the Cardinals. So if you have stock in the Christian McCaffrey big game, you may want to buy while you can, because feed CMC may be the motto, whether it's on the ground or through the air this Sunday against the Cardinals, which they haven't played a guy like CMC yet this season.
I'd like to see the Niners get in this game Brian Robinson's rhythm going a little bit and try to use Robinson and CMC together. And I'd like to see them use CMC a little bit more as a receiver this year, because I think it does save the big time hits. I mean, how do you get hurt in the NFL? You can get hurt doing anything, but you really get hurt if you're running the ball between the tackles. Those guys inside are tough. They're big. They're strong. The hits are hard. You're taking hits at your legs from guys you never see. I mean, it's tough running inside. And this guy's, he can do it, but I'd like to see them, throw him. He's a mismatch. He's a mismatch any way you use him. I think he's a great mismatch in the pass game. I'd like to see them utilize him more in the pass game. All right, let's just say Arizona's going to pull the upset. Arizona swept the Niners last year. The Niners are a 1.5 point favorite to win this game on Sunday. Niners will be wearing the all whites, by the way. Looking forward to seeing the all whites. It's the 68th meeting of Niners Cardinals. Niners lead the series only 36-31. They're 1.5 point favorites. Over unders 43.5. Adam Amin, Mark Sanchez, and Christina Pink on the call on Fox. And, of course, Guy Haberman and Tim Ryan on the 49ers radio network. Greg Papa, we love you, brother. We're thinking of you. It was great to see you back on the radio, and we want to see you back doing these games. But we're thinking about you, brother. How does Arizona – paint me the picture, Sterling. Arizona wins this game. How do they do it?
When you look at the last 2 weeks for the Cardinals, there has been an MO to their games. Get up early, not being able to close late. They were up 17-10 over the Saints. They won 20-13. They were up 20-3 against the Panthers. They won that game 27-22. The Cardinals have only scored 10 second half points in this game. If San Francisco, like the Panthers and the Cardinals, go down early in this game, the one thing you cannot do is not run the football. You have to find a way to run the football. Yes, on paper, the Cardinals' run defense has been one of the best in football. However, opposing teams, because they get down, stop running the football. The Cardinals are seeing opponents' running backs, not quarterbacks, just running backs, average around 17 or 18 rushing attempts per game. San Francisco ranks inside the top 7 at about 31 per game. The Niners cannot get away from running the football, their identity. It helps Mac Jones, obviously, in play action at times. It also opens things up for the rest of your offense. So if San Francisco is going to lose this game, it is because they get down early and Mac Jones has to throw the football a ton, and they just avoid running the football with Christian McCaffrey. So, run the football. Even if you're down early, don't forget to feed Robinson or Christian McCaffrey on the ground. Make the Cardinals stop you. They have not proven against a good running offense yet they can do that. So run the football.
To me, I think the way if the Niners lose this game, it's going to be because the Cardinals generate explosive plays on offense, defense, or special teams, but explosives. What do I envision? Maybe a downfield pass to a Zay Jones or a Michael Wilson, a big penalty, by the Niners' young defensive backs who maybe don't play with poise with the ball in the air, as these guys are trying to stretch the field and Kyler takes some shots. Maybe Kyler gets loose for a couple of long runs. I think explosives. Benson, for example, I don't think can beat them, down after down, but I do think he could have an explosive run or two. And, in a lot of times it's all you need. So I would say Mac's got to take care of the football, and the Niners edge rush, or the Niners tackles, have to take care of the Cardinal edge rush. I mean, Baron Browning and Josh Sweat can't live in the backfield.
Yeah.
That's one. They got to block their edge rushers. And I think the other real key is you gotta eliminate explosives. You can't let Kyler have explosives on the air or the ground. You can't give up big, 50-yard penalties. I think the Cardinals, you got to make the Cardinals prove that they can drive the ball the length of the field against your defense. I think that's something. You don't want to be giving away big chunk yardage plays. And then I think you got to block on offense. You got to block Sweat. You got to block Browning. And they're really both pretty good. And that you're probably going to need to chip those guys and give McKivitz and Trent Williams a little bit of help. But I do get the feeling this is quite the chess match between Gannon and Shanahan. Gannon's a really good coach. The other thing other thing about Gannon is that Gannon won't just sit there and die and wither. If they're getting beat, he'll try an onside kick. He'll do something. He'll try to steal a possession. He will not sit back and just be like, well, we'll see if we can battle this team even and try to win one at the end. No, he's going to try to do something dramatic to either steal a possession or, create a dramatic play somewhere in the game. He's an impatient young guy who is going to try to dictate the terms of this game. So that's kind of how I see it. Couple last thoughts before we get out of here. One, what did the first two games tell you about the 49ers? Maybe pick one good, one bad. Is there one good, one bad thing that you learned about the 49ers in the first two games of the season?
I would say that the good thing is the offseason talking point of, the defense will be a big question mark and the defense is young and they're unproven, like the offense will have to carry them. That's not the case. Like this defense, again, it's through two games, so we'll see how the year goes. But the defense, led by Fred Warner, led by Nick Bosa, they can close out games for you. And that's a big change from what last year looked like. This team knows how to finish games for the first time in 2 years, it feels like, too. So I think getting away from Brock Purdy and George Kittle and the offense has to carry the defense. No. The defense can very much play complementary to the offense any given Sunday, at least, again, against the Seahawks and against the Saints. The bad thing, I would say, is where is this rushing offense? They're averaging closer to 3 yards per carry with Christian McCaffrey, with Brian Robinson, who you traded for. I get you played Seattle, a really good defense, but you played the Saints, and you ran it better against them. But this team has to find a way to run the football. That's Shanahan's bread and butter. It's what he wants to do. And whether there's no lanes to run, there's a lack of explosiveness. I don't think they've had more than one rush over 12 yards this year. That does not feel like San Francisco 49er football. So bad is not being able to run the football very well, but the good is the defense has been a big game saver for them through 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the good is they've got a way to finish people off. Now, we've talked about Bosa and we've talked about Huff, but it's really their entire NASCAR front. If the Niners can get a lead, man, you're going to have a hard time blocking their 4-man front. You're just going to have a hard time with that. If they can get a lead. I like the teeth and the finishing ability of their defense. I think there's talent on all three levels of the defense, but it's the addition of Huff and McKell specifically, which has given their defensive front, when they have a lead, just unbelievable teeth. And I just think that's a really dynamic thing that I didn't necessarily know that they had. I didn't know they had it at all, and let alone one of the best, defensive pass rushing fronts in football, and that's what it looks like. So that's the positive. And I don't want to, copy you, but my thought on the biggest negative is that the 49ers still, even though they had, they drafted Jordan James and they found Corey Kiner and they have Guerrero and they traded for Brian Robinson and, all these, they still don't have a good second back. They don't seem like they have like a second back that you absolutely can depend on. Now, hopefully Brian Robinson becomes that guy, but to this point, haven't seen it. And Guerrero seems like he's regressed. And I've heard about how great Jordan James is going to be. I just haven't seen it. And it's like, here we are. It's week 3. They're a running football team. And do they have a runner other than CMC? So that would be my question. I mean, I'm not saying they definitely don't, but that guy hasn't surfaced yet. Brian Robinson hasn't gotten loose. Now, when Shanahan was asked about the run game not popping, and when Kubiak was asked about it, they're like, hey, look, we're facing a lot of two-shell defenses.
Yeah.
We're not getting that explosive run. It's distorting our numbers. We actually are. Kyle said he's not that concerned about it. What do you think of that? I mean, there is, in a two-shell defense, even if you beat the first line of defense, there's a guy waiting for you, 8 yards off the line of scrimmage, just sitting there waiting to make a tackle. It makes it very difficult to get explosives in the run game.
Well, it's not going to get any easier on Sunday against the Cardinals, who play a ton of single high. They utilize 3 safeties and they stack that box saying, hey, bring it. Come on. Like, we have to find a way to run the football. Like, we really have to find a way to get on the ground with Christian McCaffrey and Brian Robinson and help them get successful runs, because right now you're playing the Cardinals, and if they find success against you in single high, 3 safety looks and stacking the box, do you not think the other 32 teams will do it too? Like, you have to find a way to break through the glass ceiling, if you will, of how defenses are scheming you. So obviously personnel matters, and you're going to play good defenses one week and you're going to play bad defenses the next week. But it really does seem like San Francisco is kind of in a rut, and Shanahan has to be the one to, whether it is a run to end around or just find a way to get these guys open via pitch, via, kind of a fake pitch option somewhere. Like, you have to find a way to get your guys the ability to be more successful on the ground, because the Cardinals are going to bring it on Sunday, just like Seattle did and just like the Saints did too.
I mean, the Niners have to get better in the red zone offensively. The Niners are, again, middle of the pack in scoring touchdowns in the red zone. Through 2 games, 49ers have scored a touchdown on 57.1% of their trips to the red zone, tied for 17th place in the NFL. That's exactly in line with the 57.1% the Niners posted for all of last season, which ranked 14th in the NFL. I mean, I thought the Niners would be better in the red zone with the return of McCaffrey, but it also coincided with, there is no Ayuk, there's no Debo, there's no Kittle. How much of a concern is the red zone offense to you?
I don't think it's that big of a concern. I think a lot of it, like the Seattle game, I do think jaded it a little bit, because Kyle got kind of scared at the end of the first half, and you saw what it looked like when they were at full strength. And I get it. You're probably about 2, 3, 4 weeks away from being there with Ayuk, maybe back by week 6 or 7, who knows? Right now, I'm really not too concerned about it, knowing that once guys get back healthy, they're going to be fine. I thought last year the big problem wasn't the personnel they had as running back and receiver. It was the offensive line. And I think that continues to be a big concern for me. If you can't run the football in the red zone, and they really can't do it at all, you're not going to be able to minimize or kind of make that field smaller for you. So once you get inside and it's 1st and 10 at the 20, how do you make that field shorter? Run the football successfully. San Francisco was always great at that in 2022 and 23, and they haven't done that for the last 2 years. So that, to me, is the biggest difference. The offensive line has not had to push the strength to finish off drives.
There's some good things about the offensive line, but the fact that the Niners are struggling to run the ball and Purdy took 8 hits in week 1 kind of makes you wonder, is this line going to be good? Is it going to struggle? I think it's kind of an unknown. All right, it is time for our Habbas Law segment as we finish up on the Krug Show. I want to talk a little bit about surprises around the NFL. We're brought to you by Habbas Law. Big fan of Habbas Law, and my dad was a lawyer, my sister was a lawyer, my brother's a lawyer. The difference between success and failure in life is having the right lawyer. I really do believe that. And Habbas Law, they're outstanding. And today's show is sponsored by Habbas Law. For more than 40 years, Omar Habbas and his son Tarek, they've been standing up for people right here in Northern California. They're fierce, relentless attorneys. They don't back down until justice is done. When you're injured, insurance companies will always try to dodge. These guys don't let them dodge. They know the playbook because they've been battling insurance companies for decades and winning. So they're official partners of Bay Area institutions like the San Francisco Giants, the San Jose Earthquakes, the San Jose Sharks, and others. So they're very much rooted in the community. So if you need someone in your corner, call the firm that insurance companies hope you never call, and that's Habbas Law. They will fight to make it right. On the web, they're at habbaslaw.com, HABBAS law.com, 1-800-INJURED. They will fight to make it right. Thanks to Habbas Law for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. Let's go through. Let's talk about some surprises 2 weeks in to the NFL season. And if you want me to go first, I can go first, but there's a bunch. There's a bunch of surprises around football.
I think the easy one here is Daniel Jones. like
Daniel
what
Jones
is happening?
And the Indianapolis Colts have one of the NFL's most potent offenses with a quarterback who was cast off by the New York Giants.
And you watch him play, and he's not turning the football over. And a lot of this, I think, is attributed to Shane Steichen. He's a heck of a play caller. It hasn't really mattered how or who the quarterback has been in that room, whether it is Gardner Minshew, Anthony Richardson. They found a way to win football games. That team is ready to compete. It just needed a average quarterback at best, and Shane Steichen is bringing a little bit more out of Daniel Jones. And I think we're going to talk at the end of the year that Daniel Jones, in their eyes, might be the stabilizing force to kind of keep that regime in place in Indianapolis. Obviously, it's 2 weeks into the season, but he looks really good. Crushed Miami, and then also held on to beat the Broncos last weekend.
I'll tell you one thing that's a surprise to me is that the early surprise in Kansas City is that Kansas City doesn't look very good. Mahomes is now 30. He's leading the Chiefs in rushing. And you look at the Chiefs on paper at running back, you'd say, oh, man, they got some good running back room. Isaiah Pacheco, but Pacheco's always hurt. And then Kareem Hunt, but this is probably the year Kareem Hunt's finally done. And then they have Brashard Smith from SMU, but he's a little too young and inexperienced. And then they have Elijah Mitchell from the Niners, and he hasn't played at all. And here we are 2 weeks in, and Mahomes is leading Kansas City in rushing. They had the injury to Jalen Royals, an injury to Xavier Worthy. You got Chris Jones talking trash when, literally as the Eagles are taking the kneel down snaps. I don't know. I think Kansas City this is the year they come crashing down. They won a bunch of games last year that were close, and they got destroyed in the Super Bowl. They got beat by the Eagles in the Super Bowl rematch, and now they have no rushing attack. And I don't know. I think the sun is starting to set on the Chiefs.
They are in for a major organizational restructure. Obviously, you have Mahomes, you have Reed, you have Spagnuolo, or Spagnuolo, excuse me. But that team is old. They are somewhat fragile. They can't run the football. They don't have the wide receivers. Kelsey's aging out. Like, we are now, I think, entering in the period where we saw with Tom Brady, where there was a decade he didn't win anything. He was competitive. He was in the playoffs, but he did not win a Super Bowl. I think we're going to see that now with Mahomes. He's won a handful. He's been great for, the last, near decade, if you will. But this to me feels like their drought setting in out there in KC.
Yeah. The other thing, there were an awful lot of people that were telling me how great Caleb Williams was and how great the Bears are. And you know what? Dennis Allen is the defensive coordinator for the Bears. And with the talent that the Bears have accumulated on both sides of the ball, I kind of thought maybe this was going to be, a bust out year for the Bears. But then I remembered that Caleb stinks. And, this Bears defense, Montez Sweat, Jervon Dexter, Grady Jarrett comes in from Atlanta. They've got Tremaine Edmonds. They've got Jaquan Brisker. They've got a bunch of guys on this defense. The Bears defense is ranked 32nd in points allowed, dead last. They ain't going to go if they get the worst defense in football and Caleb stinks, that's probably, Ben Johnson's going to do a lot more losing before they win.
I am a little shocked that Caleb hasn't realized now entering into his second year with a really good play caller and a lot of weapons at his disposal that he doesn't have to continually play hero ball. You're not playing, some random college in Mississippi. Like, you're not playing these terrible teams in college in the Pac, 12 now, whatever it's called. You're playing the NFL. You cannot hold the football for 10 seconds and expect to complete a pass. And you see Caleb in structure, he looks fine. He looks like a competent quarterback, but as soon as those first 15 plays are done, Caleb gets into hero ball and he just looks like a shell of what he could be in the offense.
Yeah. I mean, they were, a lot of people are like, oh, they're an outside Super Bowl contender. What?
No way. No way.
Come again? No. Now, a team that does look really good to me are the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you've got Bijan Robinson. You got Michael Penix, but they're not really throwing it all that much. You got a really good backup quarterback, obviously, in Kirk Cousins. You got a pretty good offensive line. You got decent weapons. Ray McLeod, Drake London, Darnell Mooney. And then their deal was they had no pass rush. So they just killed it with numbers, right? They signed Leonard Floyd as a free agent. They drafted Jalen Walker out of Georgia. Then they were like, oh, we'll trade next year's number one. We'll get James Pierce out of Tennessee.
Yeah.
They already had Arnold Ebiketie. This team also added Billy Bowman and Xavier Watts in the secondary, two of the better safeties in the league. And now Jeff Ulbrich is their new defensive coordinator, whose son made that stupid mistake in the offseason. What did his son do again? He
texted or he texted Shador, right? Saying, was it Shador? Like, you're going to get drafted in the first round, whatever it was.
Right. It was Shador. So, so that's kind of a dark moment for Ulbrich. But, they've invested in their defense, Ruka Rororo in last year's draft, Zach Harrison, Caden Ellis. They got a bunch of guys. They brought in Devon Diablo. I think the Falcons, the early surprise is the Falcons have one of the most potent pass rushes in the entire league right now. And a lot of that's because of the new faces there. So to me, that's a surprise.
I also think, especially for Atlanta, it's just about getting numbers. You have your quarterback in place in Penix, but Raheem Morris does know how to call plays and scheme up things for a defense. Maybe not as a head coach with the Buccaneers back in the day, but you ask him to call plays for your defense and not be the guy leading your offense. That defense is in a good place right now, where last year I think they were 8-9 or at some point down the road, they were vying for the NFC South. And I think, albeit, again, it's through 2 weeks, they're going to be in competition with the Buccaneers very easily. Could have beat them in week 1 this year. So I'm a big fan of what the Falcons have going on out there in Georgia. They look really good. They're young. They have a ceiling to them currently, but they're in a really good place right now.
Another surprise is that, Aaron Rodgers looked pretty good last week, or has looked decent so far, even though they lost to Seattle. But the Steelers defense ranks 29th in yards and points allowed per game. Yeah. That's a surprise. They
killing
paid
my
TJ Watt
team right now.
I mean, the Steelers really, really bad. Also, a lot of people thought the Houston Texans were going to be a Super Bowl team. CJ Stroud has been pressured on 39.1% of his dropbacks, 7th most in the league. They don't have a good enough offensive line.
Yeah. which they remade the entire thing during the offseason. They traded Laramie Tunsil to Washington, and they were hoping it would pay off, but then Joe Mixon got hurt. You don't have Tank Dell in the slot. Christian Kirk's been out the first 2 weeks. Nick Chubb and Woody Marks can't really move the football on the ground. Like, that offense, quite frankly, sucks in Houston right now. And Stroud, you hope, is the guy, and you believe he's the guy. He just hasn't played like the franchise quarterback he looked like. I think it was a mistake to fire Bobby Slowick, a year and a half ago, and they haven't really been able to find their footing ever since that.
It's funny that the starting quarterback turnstile is a trend to watch again this season. Last year, 59 different quarterbacks started at least one game. That's 9 shy of the NFL record of 68, which was set in 2022. Just 2 weeks into this season, look at that number's already on the climb. Up to 5 starters could be out in week 3. Joe Burrow with the toe, J.J. McCarthy with the ankle, Brock Purdy with the toe or the shoulder, possibly Jaden Daniels with the knee, Justin Fields with the concussion. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, when you think about, the quarterbacks going down left and right in the NFL, I mean, it's, you need multiple quarterbacks. I think it's safe to say. Where would the 49ers be? I mean, if the Niners still had Brandon Allen or Josh Dobbs, their outlook for the season right now would look different than it does right now with Mac Jones.
You'd be talking about 6 wins, maybe. Like, that's how bad it would be. Another wasted year. And obviously then, seats start getting hot and everything. But I will say, of that grouping of backup quarterbacks that are probably going to play long-term, am I wrong to believe that Jake Browning might be able to lead the Bengals to somewhat of a competitive season out there in Cincinnati?
I kind of was considering him as a backup as a fantasy option, because they do have Jamar Chase. They do have T. Higgins. They're probably going to throw it a lot. He's put up some fat numbers.
He plays on time in the system. You have Chase Brown. He'll get it out quick. Like, there's reason to believe that for as bad as the Pittsburgh Steelers defense has been, for as bad as the Browns are, you can lose twice to the Ravens, whatever. You're fighting for a wild card anyways. Keep them competitive, up until you get to around, December. Joe Burrow comes back and say you're a 7-win team with a couple games to go. Why not bet the Bengals to sneak into a wild card? I believe in Jake Browning.
Yeah, that's a good one. Folsom High School, right in Sacramento. I'd love to see it. It'd be great. Now, they don't have much of a run game, No. Chase Brown, they got Taj Brooks behind it, but they don't have a lot. All right, let's hit a couple supers and we'll bolt for the door. We got this one. Keegan Barsuglia. He says, as a 27-year-old, I never got to see Roger Craig play. I imagine him being like a Debo combined with Achane. How would you describe him with today's players? Well, he wasn't a Debo. He was more like a he was first of all, he was the best conditioned athlete in the league. He was in amazing shape. Like Jerry Rice's hill workout on the peninsula is not even Jerry's workout. It's Roger's workout that Jerry did, and Jerry's so great that everybody called it Jerry's workout. It's actually Roger's workout. Roger was an unbelievable athlete who kept himself in unbelievable condition. He was 6 feet, about 220 pounds. Joe Montana would swing it to him in the flat, and he'd make one guy miss and go 18 yards, and they would do it 6 times a game. I mean, it was amazing. I mean, Joe dropped back to pass. He's looking down the field. He's looking for Dwight. He's looking for Jerry. He's looking for Taylor. He doesn't see any. Flip it over in the flat to Roger. And Roger, teams didn't throw it to their running backs. You ran it with your running backs and you threw it to your receivers. The Niners threw it to Roger. So, God, who's he like?
Does he remind you a little bit of Jonathan Taylor, albeit much bigger than him? He's utilized more like Jahmyr Gibbs is nowadays, where the Lions just feed him out of the backfield continually. But to me, he reminds me a little bit of like Jonathan Taylor. Again, it's the Colts offense, which really isn't that great, but just the reliance on Taylor through the air at times and the way they utilize Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit, to me, feels a little bit like how Craig looked in San Francisco.
thinking about the players around the league. Who does he remind me of? It's hard to say.
There is no 1-for-1 comparison. Really isn't one.
No, there really isn't. He had the power of a fullback. He had the speed of a halfback. He could catch the ball so naturally. He was kind of a one of one. He really was. I mean, I'm trying to think who is a great receiving back in today's game.
He's not Christian McCaffrey.
No, but I mean,
not Derrick Henry.
No, he's kind of like a poor man's Saquon. I mean, Saquon's a little faster, but I mean, he as far as a bigger back, but good speed. He ran kind of upright, but he had the high knees. He ran through you. It's hard. It's hard. I don't know. That's a good one. I really don't know. He's such a unique style. It's kind of like there's not always a guy. Earl Campbell, there's nobody like Earl Campbell in today's game, and Debo was a little bit more like, big thighs, big butt, big, a lot of heft. Debo was like more like a, it's like you don't want to tackle Debo with a head start. Roger Craig was a little bit more of, a little bit better, a lot better shape. He was in a lot better shape than Debo. It's hard to say. I would say kind of.
There's some YouTube comments saying Josh Jacobs or like a Matt Forte with the Bears back in the day.
Yeah, Matt Forte might be a good call. Receiving back out of the backfield who was hard to bring down. We got this one from James Foster. The Cardinals are at the bottom of the league in creating pressure on defense. I hope we can get Brian Robinson going this game. Yeah, I mean, that would be nice. It would be really, really nice. Brian Robinson, that's the one thing I'd love to see the Niners get rolling, is get Brian Robinson really, really cooking. All right, that's going to do it for us. We're an hour and 26 minutes into our stream. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Sleeper for sponsoring this show. And thanks to Habbas Law, our good friends at Habbas Law, 1-800-INJURED. They will fight to make it right. And we appreciate those sponsors sponsoring our show tonight. Sterling will give you the final word. Niners Cardinals go Sunday. I'm fired up for it. It's the home opener. Niners will be wearing the all whites, all white throwbacks, which really it's a clean look. The first time they've worn them, I believe, at home. I love the all whites. I think it's a really great look. And I've seen them a lot at night, but I'm eager to see what they look like in the daytime. Cardinals will be in the red. Niners will be in the white at home. You have a final thought before we bolt for the door?
I think for the last time they've worn the all whites at home was in 2019 against the Panthers, Nick Bosa's interception game as a rookie. So maybe that's in store for San Francisco. I will end with this stat, though. The Cardinals are the second most penalized team in the league, over 10 per game, giving up 75 yards for free per game. So Cardinals want to come in, send a message. Also a very undisciplined team so far in 2025.
On the heels of last week with the Saints, it sounds like more of the same. For Sterling, I'm Larry. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Can't